Hello and welcome to Greet the Week. Trust everyone is doing well today. Jan is going with our topic today, and she made the comment about, Ben Franklin stating that there's only two things in life that's certain, and that's death and taxes, but she's added another one. So, Jan, talk about it.
Hello, everybody. This is Jan Moray, and I'm sure there's more than one other topic that could be added to that. But when I was just thinking about crises, we all face crises at some point in our life. I don't think there's a single person who hasn't gone through a crisis at some point in their life. Some of them are not too difficult, and others are pretty traumatic. And some people, they make it through the crisis just fine. You could even have two people who've been through the exact same incident, and one will do quite well. The other just has struggled so much to get their life back together. And you can't help but wonder, why the difference? And is it a learnable skill so that you can make it through a crisis? Because, like I said, you can't avoid them. It's going to happen. They're going to come in your life. And so, yes, Charlotte comments, maybe it's different personalities. And I believe that. I agree that different personalities and different circumstances do have a lot to do with, it's just not one thing. Whenever something happens, it's not just one thing that's a cause. There's a whole bunch of things. We live in this world, and everything is connected and interrelated, and so it's never just one thing that results in what you decide to do. It's a combination of things. So how can we put the combination in our favor so that we're able to weather a crisis fairly well? There's a lot of times that you do have to mourn what happened and process what happened, and it adds a lot of inconvenience in your life, but it doesn't have to ruin your life. It doesn't have to stay with you for the rest of your life. And so I just thought we'd start the conversation that way and see what everybody thought.
Well, it is different personalities. There's no doubt about that. But, they say that we form our own ego. And so just like our brain has plasticity to it and can be reshaped and reformed, so can we in how we handle things and how we see them. And as we begin to observe others and let them be a role model as to either what I want to be like or what I don't want to be like, then that gives us a model to go by, either to keep us on an even keel or to help climb that mountain up and develop muscle, or to keep on and going. And I think about the years that I was with the fire department, both as a first responder and a firefighter. It was always to assess the scene so that we didn't get hurt, but also so that those that were involved in danger or a car accident or whatever, they were not hurt also, or not more hurt, not causing more damage. And so it's realizing the fact, and an old statement, an old thing, that into each life a little rain must fall.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And the way you look at a crisis, if you look at crises as being such an inconvenience and poor me, why does this stuff always happen to me? And you're going to have a little more difficult time getting through it as opposed to somebody who accepts that is part of life and those kinds of things are going to happen. And you just need to make the best of it and move forward.
Yeah. And it's not ever to minimize a person's pain or what happened. Okay, it's not that at all. It's not to minimize it. But it's to look at the fact that another person's evil or another person's ill will or a natural catastrophe, and it is a calamity, but it cannot destroy the good that is within us, unless we give it permission to.
Right.
Unless we allow it to.
Yeah.
And it's looking at that everything that happens, we are a combined whole of physical, emotional, all of these things. And so it affects everything about us. And so, first of all, we need to take care of, not causing more harm. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of our body to the degree that we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it may be, just having a good cry.
Right. Yeah.
And that's okay to kind of get it out. Because if we bottle those tears in, and or even the anger out, get the anger out. Do it in constructive ways.
Because bottling anger or any emotion in, it's going to find its way out sometime. You can't keep it inside. And it could affect your physical health. It could affect how you respond to another situation or how well you're able to deal with life. Keeping emotions bottled up is definitely not the way to go. Now, Charlotte asked the questions, how are we defining crisis? And I don't know that there's any set definition, because everybody has their own idea of what constitutes a crisis. What might be a crisis for you might just be the day-to-day normal stuff that for me. And I mean, I guess the way I'm looking at it is something that, that's out of the ordinary, that you're struggling with, that you're, it's creating emotions inside of you, negative emotions that you don't know how to deal with, and you don't know what to do about it. But it can be anything. It can be real major, or it can be something that looks insignificant to somebody else. Because sometimes somebody will make a comment to you that's very hurtful, and they may not think that it was a hurtful comment, but it does affect you, and it does keep you from doing things that you would do normally, or just affects you so much you can't work, or you can't concentrate on what you're doing. So.
It's something that disrupts your routine.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's something that, again, that is very kind of devastating to the individual. Whether it is, there's all kinds of crises. It could be moving either away from the country to the city, or away from the city to the country, or going to another country. Just all kinds of things. Or relationships, whether it's forming one or whether it's breaking up from one. It's all those children leaving home or children coming back home.
Yeah. So it can be positive things too. In your examples, it's something positive that kind of shakes up your world and makes something different. And anything that introduces change into your life can be unsettling, even if it's a positive change.
And begin to have a new routine where it can kind of settle into it. Whether it's or of course then there's all kinds of natural disasters, whether it's a fire or a flood or
right,
physical things, illness, and losses, whether it's death, health, finances. There's a lot of scams, and sometimes we're scammed.
Right.
It can be real destructive, and it can affect the person's self-image. It can affect their finances. It can just affect everything. So it's looking at those things and how do we handle them. And I suggest that we, my slogan in life is, it is what it is, so what, now what?
Right.
And whatever it is, it happened, it's already happened, it is. And so what are we going to do about it? And the next step, it is what it is, so what? It's already here. It's something you can't erase. Now what are we going to do about it? Because what we do then, and those thoughts and those actions that we take, is going to begin to either take us on that slippery slope of going downhill, or it's going to help keep us stable, or it's, where we can cry or fuss or work it out, to begin to develop a muscle to go through it.
Yeah. When you were talking about assessing the situation, I think that's a good place to start, to look at what is the damage? what is the damage that's been done here, and has it changed my behavior? Has it changed the way I've been functioning? And then is that a change for the good, or isn't it? Or do I need to go back to the way I was, or is this a good change for me? But to really take a look and see what's going on before you start jumping in and hollering and screaming and crying or whatever.
And in the process, get to know you.
Yeah.
Who you are and or who you want to be. And bring the whole you to the experience. It's realizing that, it does affect you emotionally. It does affect you relationally. It does affect you, well, in just every way, financially. All kinds of ways that it affects you. And what? And then, just bring your whole self to that experience so that you are aware of it.
Right.
And find a place where you can rest right in the middle of it. Even if that's just looking around, even if that's taking a moment to be thankful you're still alive, or to be thankful that, I'm reminded of Rumi's poem on the guest house. He says, whatever it is, welcome it in, welcome it in, welcome it in. He says, don't push anything away, just welcome it. And he says, you say that they've robbed me, they've taken all my stuff. And he says, welcome it, it's made room for more. So it's looking at it, and it's bringing our whole self to it, and it's finding a place of rest right in the middle of it. Yeah. There's something that can be thankful for. After all the fires, and there's the mourning and the loss of that, but I'm thankful that we still have this. I'm always look at, what do you have left?
Yeah, and that is hard to do, especially when something was stolen from you or burnt, or that, because you do mourn that loss, but you do need to open your eyes and take a look and say, okay, but they didn't take this. I mean, it brings to mind a few years ago when we were moving out of our house to remodel it, some of my rings got stolen. And my wedding ring was sitting right there with them, and they left the wedding ring. And the moving company was owned by an acquaintance of mine, and so I called him up to let him know, and of course he was all upset about it. And I told him, I said, I guess I am thankful that they didn't take my wedding ring. And he just kind of stopped me. He said, wow, thank you for that. Most people wouldn't look at it that way. And I said, well, what am I going to do? They're gone, and I know it's not your fault. I just bring it to your attention because it was your company that I had hired, and it was hard. It was hard to accept that, because I really like those rings. One of them was a couple of them were family rings. And but it does help to think about what you are grateful for, what is going well, and what you still have. I think that's a real good first step to getting through a crisis, is to know that it could be worse. It could
Right.
be worse.
Yeah. And kind of embracing the mystery of it. Why was my house the only house and all these others stayed okay? Or sometimes we want to look at all those whys, and we're just digging that ditch that doesn't work. You got to look at what happened, what has happened, and what do we have yet to build on. And the thing of it is that, broken bones begin to heal immediately because the body is made to heal. Mm-hmm. And I have this lady that she fell in the bathtub and broke her arm. And she didn't, she knew it hurt a lot, but it didn't break through the skin or anything. It wasn't protruding. And she didn't realize that it had broken. That was just a lot of pain. Anyway, she did nothing about it. And it grew back together, except it grew back askewed.
Right.
And now, to have that corrected, they need to go in and re-break it, but she has not yet chosen to do that. But it's been a long time now, and there's all kinds of pain that comes to that, not only in life in general, but especially when the weather changes.
Yeah.
So you see, our bodies are made to heal. They're made to heal. Well, so are our emotions.
They are.
But often, just like all of nature abhors a void, and if we don't put grass or flowers there, weeds will grow, something will grow. And so just like the body begins to heal, whether we have done anything to help it heal, whether it's been aligned correctly or not, so too do our emotions take on a life of their own. And, you know, in looking at what we have left, one of the things that we have left is our life. What have we not lost? If we're still breathing,
Right.
we still have our creativity. We still have our power. The thing of it is that our creative filter has, or our creativity has no filter on it. And we can create those emotions. That's poor little me, and I'll never get over this. Now, I'm not saying that there's compassion for you, because things happen and it's sad. But, you know, we have to work at staying depressed. We have to work at staying angry.
We do.
Because just like our body wants to heal, so do our emotions want to heal.
Yeah. Yeah, I know some people will have a hard time with thinking that, you know, our body doesn't want to stay depressed, but it really doesn't. I mean,
It doesn't.
You have to work at it, because I can remember, you know, being in that state and, you know, wanting to go out and do something, but no, I need to be mad right now because this is not going my way, and sometimes you do have to force yourself to stay in that depressed state or emotional state.
Well, and
sometimes you're shaking her head. I'm telling on myself, you know. But you know, and once you figure that out, once you learn that, it just opens the door for so much. You can laugh at yourself and you can say, you know, why am I hurting myself? The only person I'm really hurting is me. And
yeah. My mother-in-law lived with us for several years before she died, and she would get, you know, really down. We were out one day, and she was just really pleasant. I mean, just chit-chatting and everything. And I made the comment to her. I said, "Oh, Ruby, it seemed like you're feeling so much better."
Oh.
And instantly, she said, "Well, no, not really."
Yeah.
The thing of it is I said, "Oh, yeah, do. It's okay to get well. It's much more enjoyable to, you know, to have you engaging." Right. And so it's okay to. It's okay to.
It is.
And then also in all of these things, you just kind of get honest with ourselves and get to know, how might I be overreacting?
Right. And what am I accomplishing by doing that? Am I having to save face by acting like I'm still upset about this? Yeah, it's, you know, admit, okay, you know, maybe I overreacted and what you said was right, and it's okay. Nobody's going to come back and complain about it or tease you about it. It's just like, well, they're just happy that you're engaging.
Exactly. It's so much more pleasant than yeah. And then, you know, what life lesson is in this? Now, please do not misunderstand. It's not that we are diminishing the fact that something tragic happened, right, or something devastating or something hurtful happened, whether it was just a bruised ego. We're not discounting that, and that it does hurt. But sometimes we have to own it before we can get rid of it.
Yeah. You have to mourn it. You have to process it and understand what happened.
Right.
It might take some time.
And look at what life lesson may be there.
Right.
You know, what is life trying to teach me? Yeah. Because sometimes, you know, if we won't hear in a still small voice, it takes a tornado. It was like the cartoon in the paper the other day. The dad went out to get the Lord. He says, "I've been calling you. Didn't you hear me?" He says, "Well, not the first few times."
Oh.
I had to have you come and, you know, take me by the hand and get my attention. And in the book and everything that's been so published and talked about for several years now, the book, The Secret. Uh-huh. And the secret was this guy who was just barely eking by and had this skinny cow that they were just barely getting enough milk to make cheese and all that to keep on living. And whenever the king came to town, he said, "I'm coming to your house for dine." And the only thing he had was to kill the cow. Mm. And, you know, thought, what? We won't live past this grand feast with the king coming into town. And yet, several years later, he was the guy that had been eking it by. He was a builder in the community, and the king came back through. And they said, well, you probably won't recognize the guy you had lunch with when you came and visited here several years ago. He said, oh, yeah. He said, I had to do something to get him to kill that cow.
Oh, because that was holding him back.
Sometimes we let those things hold us back, and we need to let them go. And, you may even want to look at the fact of karma. Because life, we reap what we sow. But sometimes what we reap, we don't want to own it because, oh, I don't deserve that. And maybe we do. Or maybe we don't. Maybe it's to be a life lesson for someone else. I mean, it's not to place blame anywhere. It's to look for it is what it is. So what? It's terrible. It's devastating. I've been scammed. I've been lied to. I've been betrayed. Everything's gone. All that. Now what are we going to do about it? Now we've got a new place to start. We've got life within us. We've got a spirit within us. We have creativity within us. We have healing methods within us. There's few people around that care enough to come over and help too.
Right.
And to give encouragement and to give words of wisdom.
And Nancy commented back on when we were talking about depressing, that we're hurting ourselves mainly, but we may also be hurting others if we expect them to sympathize or put other things aside to try to help you. And that's and in a way that if they do that, they're enabling us to continue to depress. And no, she's because I see that when I was young, mother would always be the one to kind of help me to come pay attention to me and stuff. And so she'd put things aside to come help me out.
I don't think they're enabling us to keep it up, but I do think that many times when we depress strongly, or we sad strongly, or we anger strongly, when other people are trying to attempt to help us or to help bring us up or to fix whatever our situation is, many times we do keep it going longer than we really need to.
Right.
But I don't think it really enables us. I think it depends on what we're aware of. Are we aware of how it's impacting other people's lives and how it's impacting our life? And if we can assess and evaluate how my behavior is impacting me and my life, but how is it impacting others around me, then it's not necessarily enabling me. It may just be the thing that pops me to and says, okay, I'm done with that.
Once you realize what you're doing to the other people,
yeah,
loved ones.
But I think many times people, when they're depressing strongly, they're not thinking, they're not being aware of, not thinking, they're thinking, but they're not aware of what it's doing to other people in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they just think, it's poor me, it's all about me.
And sometimes you have to get,
but we could be hurting others also.
Sometimes you have to get sicker to prove that you're sick. Get more depressed to prove that this is really depressing, rather and see how it hurts. And it's also looking at what kind of a legacy do you want to leave for your children, your grandchildren, for your neighbors. I think of my mother and how she was so scared of thunderstorms and lightning and everything. And my aunt, who's my mother's sister, she would encourage me. She says, well, come on out here. We're going to sit on the porch. We're not going to get out in it. But, watch the lightning. And it's pretty to look at. And sometimes it hits a tree or a house. But, and it helped to calm that down, And then my mother, all of her life, had this battle with disorganization and dust. And yet, whenever she was dying, she so began to change in so many ways. And dust that had been her enemy for years became something that she could see coming through the sunlight, and she could see dancing ballerinas in it.
Oh, wow.
And whenever we can begin to look at things through different lenses, it is what it is. How can I see the best in it as opposed to the worst in it? Because I'm still alive. I still have breath in me. I still have spirit in me. I still have creativity within me.
There's
And
a lot of things that you have. If you just open your eyes and look around and focus on what is going well instead of what isn't, and instead of comparing you to other people and what they have and you don't, compare, to look at, what do I have? What have I worked for? What have I accomplished? There's a lot to be grateful for.
and to realize that, good night's sleep, it's amazing what tomorrow can look like.
Well, yes. And with emotions too, a lot of times you just sleep on it. And the next morning you wake up with a smile on your face till you remember what you were upset about, and then you get upset again. And it's like, no, I woke up with a smile on my face. I'm gonna hang on to that smile. But you have to be aware that you're doing that. You go back to those old habits and the old way of thinking and doing so easily.
And sometimes just taking a walking it off.
Right.
Or can begin to, and again, not discounting things that really are truly hurtful.
Right. Yeah, I mean, some of these crises are pretty significant. I mean, like if your house burnt down, you lost all your pictures, all your memories, and some of your things. But I mean, that's hard to cope with and hard to deal with. But life has to go on, and there's a lot of look at what you didn't lose, and look at how it brings the family together. I mean, things like that are opportunities to bring a family together, that you're no longer fighting because you've got a common cause to get through it. And maybe other family members you hadn't talked to in a while come around to help clean up the mess and dig through all the debris. And
Right.
focus on what is going well and how can I benefit from this.
And look at it that it is a deal, but is it a deal breaker?
Right.
Because we don't ever want to have a deal breaker with life. We don't ever want to have a deal breaker with others, because we need each other. And taking care of our basic needs and being appreciative. As I've said many, many times, anything that appreciates goes up in value.
Yes. And
just appreciating the devastation as it is buoying. It helps us to come above that flood or that whatever. Speak of flood because we've had our house flooded 3 times.
Yeah. So now if we just can't get the media to ask the questions and or talk to the people who are grateful for having the family together, after a disaster, because it's always such catastrophizing after a big ordeal and a big issue happens. Not to say that it's not bad what the people went through, but then we tend to then concentrate and focus on the loss instead of focusing on the neighborhoods coming together and people pitching in. I mean, there are stories about that as well, which are very heartwarming. But it seems like the ones that kind of stick in your mind that you see the most are the ones that are talking about all the loss and not all the good that came from whatever happened.
Well, there's a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson that I thought just fits really well in with talking about crises. He says, to leave the world a better place, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know that even one life has breathed easier because you lived. That's what it means to succeed.
Yeah.
But whether, overcome a devastation, leave a life lesson, whatever.
Yeah, that's a real good note to end here on, is that and the crisis doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't mean that your whole life is ruined. Look at it as a new beginning. We're finding a new normal. I think we've talked about that before. And move on and see what life can bring. What else can life bring? Something good.
So thanks to our guests for being with us. We appreciate you very much. And,
thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week.